Okay, well, thanks everybody for being here today. My name is Stephen Waits. I'm president of the Oxford City Council, and with me here today is Chief Bill Partridge, who will be able to address any enforcement questions related to this ordinance, and also our City Attorney, Ron Allen, who will be able to address any legal questions related to the ordinance. Last night, the Oxford City Council unanimously passed and approved ordinance number 2016-18, regulating the use of multiple occupancy bathroom or changing facilities in places of public accommodation within the city of Oxford. One of the City Council's greatest responsibilities is to promote and provide for public safety for our citizens and the visitors to our city. With that, there have been those who are so politically immersed in political correctness that they become blind to the unsafe conditions their policies may create. So when unsafe environments are created, we as leaders are charged to stand up and protect our citizens. This ordinance addresses that. As I said last night in our meeting, this ordinance is not being put in place out of concern for the 0.3% of the population that identifies themselves as transgender. In fact, it's being put in place to protect the women, children, and family from voyeurs, exhibitionists, child molesters, sexual predators, and others who would use these policies to their advantage. This is not an issue the Oxford City Council created, but it's a direct response to a national media campaign by a retailer promoting policies that have created these unsafe environments. Our citizens have a right to a safe city, to be able to shop and use the restroom facilities without concerns or fears. I've always said that people will not shop where they do not feel safe. As the retail hub of East Alabama, public safety is of great concern to our city. Public safety is not an area for compromise. This ordinance certainly represents the overwhelming will of the people of the city of Oxford, and it's simply a common sense concept. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chief Partridge.
I'll take any questions that you have as far as the enforcement of the ordinance. Let me begin by quickly saying that this ordinance is no different than any other ordinance that would be on the books in the city. It's a misdemeanor offense. It levies a maximum fine of $500 and a maximum jail sentence of 6 months. This ordinance would be handled just like any other, where an individual would make a phone call to the police department where they would want an officer to come out to file a complaint against an individual that may be violating this ordinance. Or if an officer were to happen to see an individual in his presence committing the violation, could make an arrest at that time. Anybody have any questions as far as the way the enforcement aspect of it?
So will you all be checking birth certificates? So a little bit more on the enforcement part.
A little more enforcement part is if you have a female who goes into a restroom and she finds a man in the restroom where he's gawking at her, or she feels unsafe, and of course if she calls the police and they come out and find that male in that female restroom, he's in violation of the ordinance, and therefore she could sign a warrant on him and have him arrested, just like any other municipal ordinance.
But if we were to beat this in municipal court, would he have to like bring pictures of his or her private parts to show the person on the birth certificate? And
that would be up to the judge at the time of the court case. Just like any other case. I mean, it's common sense.
Is Oxford the first city to do this?
The first city that we're aware of in the nation, we know that North Carolina and Mississippi has adopted it as a state.
Well, now North Carolina resulted in, well, this might be a more of a question for Mr. Waits, but North Carolina, when they did it, there were singers who pulled out of concerts and conventions who pulled out of the state.
I'll let them speak. I'll let the council speak as far as the ordinance itself. I'm here to speak on the enforcement aspect of the ordinance. Anybody else, anything but the enforcement aspect of it?
Is this something you have to investigate, or could you actually arrest somebody at target?
Well, it depends on what the officer finds when he gets there and the evidence presented to him. Okay. Any other questions?
Have you ever had a situation before, even before this law came out, where a man dressed as a woman and went into a bathroom and harassed anybody?
Not that I can remember off the top of my head, but you have to remember that we're now going into a slippery slope of political correctness in our country, And as those things change, then we must take the necessary means to protect our citizens.
Have you ever heard of this happening anywhere for that matter?
Have I ever heard of what happened anywhere?
A man being caught in a woman drunk when his sole purpose is to peep and perhaps even to the heterosexual and try to hide behind this as a defense.
We've had several little stories come out across the nation over the last couple of months. I've seen several online just this last 5 days where individuals have been caught in restrooms, harassing and voyeurism and that type of thing in ladies' restrooms, yes.
You know, Dixon, going back to your question too, there's a national media campaign that has just occurred that has promoted a policy that has created these environments. So the opportunity or the awareness of the opportunity has just escalated. And it's, again, that has prompted us to have to take a stance as a city.
Are you afraid that businesses will not come or that businesses will even leave because of this?
Our primary concern, as I said, as a city council, is to protect our citizens. Safety is of utmost concern. And just on the contrary, as I said earlier, I don't think people will come to Oxford and shop if they don't feel safe. And it would just take one case to hit the media for someone in another county or in our city to feel like they can't go and shop in a safe environment.
How do you respond to those that say that this is a shameful and vile attack on the transgender community?
This ordinance in no way is directed at discrimination. This ordinance is totally directed at protecting our citizens.
Will the city, a lawsuit comes up, ready to, I guess, fight that in court?
We will do what we have to do to protect our citizens.
Have you heard concerns from people
That
prompted this?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, this is my third term as a city councilman, I'm going into my 12th year. And there has never been an instance where I've heard a more overwhelming response from the community and a concern from our community for safety.
What would you say to domestic violence and sexual crime prevention groups who say that laws like this that restrict access to public facilities actually do more harm than good, and that transgender folks who may want to use whichever restroom they feel most comfortable with, they actually face the most discrimination, sexual violence.
In that case, we're talking about 0.3% of the nation. What I'm trying to do is protect 100% of the nation. One thing I will say about that though, Zach, is our local Target has a unisex bathroom, a family restroom. It is a standalone restroom. It is a reasonable accommodation that they could have made for a local policy, but instead they in turn decided to create a national policy and really open the door for these other groups to create these environments.
How much does the city receive yearly in terms of revenue from Target?
I don't know that off the top of my head.
And this is for restrooms all over the city of Oxford.
Correct.
Do you expect Target to pull out?
No.
Have you guys, either last night or today, have you heard anything from Target?
I've had an initial communication with Target this morning, and I expect to speak with them again this afternoon.
About?
I'd rather not share the details of that at this time.
Were you expecting the amount of attention that you are getting from this?
Maybe not the national attention, but I will say this, that locally, we have received a tremendous amount of appreciation from our residents for standing up and in their mind doing what's right.
Do you expect any rallies or any protests in the coming days over this matter from, let's say, the gay community?
I don't, but if that occurs, we'll address that when it does happen.
Meaning more manpower for police, other municipalities getting involved?
I would have to direct those questions to the chief.
Okay.
Any other questions or any questions from our city attorney related to any legal aspects?
I'd like to, ask the city attorney some questions.
Okay.
Now, the North Carolina law, just mentioned that, of course, it's being challenged in federal court right now.
Yeah.
Do you have any reason to think this won't be, and if it is, that the city will prevail?
Well, I wouldn't want to speculate on whether it's going to be challenged or not. I mean, we stand behind the ordinance. We think that there's a solid basis for it, obviously. And like Stephen just told you, it's not based on discrimination, it's based on protecting the general public. So we feel like it will stand up. That what happens in the future with regards to future federal legislation and other things, I wouldn't want to speculate on that either. But, you know, it may be something that's going to happen in the future. Right now, the LGBT community is not encompassed under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, and that may change too in the near future. So, you know, that'll be left up to congressional delegations to deal with that.
Is it possible a court case could actually change that, if it goes to the Supreme Court?
Oh, sure, sure. I mean, you know, any law is subject to being challenged, and whether it's going to be successful or not, it's not a matter, but, sure. It's always a possibility.
Was this particular ordinance modeled after anything that had previously come, like say the state law?
Well, I looked at a couple of states and I reviewed the law nationally. We're in rather uncharted waters now because it's not, there's not been a whole lot of an action with regards to this. This is brand new. It's probably one that we may be the first city in the nation to adopt such an ordinance. So there's not a whole lot to go on at this point other than maybe the North Carolina statute. And as was pointed out just a second ago, it's under challenge in federal court. Whether or not they're successful or not, I guess that'll have to play out in the court system.
Any other questions?
I have one more question, well, two, for Stephen. So first of all, how, have you guys given any instruction to city employees, how they're supposed to handle, say, an incident like you hear happening in a city building?
Well, all of our city buildings, pretty much, for employees, have individual restrooms.
So you guys have not said anything to city employees about?
Not at this point.
What about, tell me about how long it took. You said that you got overwhelming response from your constituents about Target's policy. So how long did it take for you to go from receiving those complaints, those concerns?
Social media is amazing. And so as they came out, I started actually getting calls, comments, and emails the same day that it actually, I'm not sure what time it came out that day, but it was the same day, and they just escalated throughout the week.
This was on Monday, this was a week ago that Target posted about its stance. So in that time frame, in 1 week, it went from, hey, we need to do something about this, to now you have a law that levies criminal punishments on this kind of thing.
Correct.
Does that, I mean, does that seem like it was enough time, really, to think out maybe?
Well, if you're concerned about safety, that's, yes, I think that is as a matter of fact, I think our community expects us to expedite concerns and address concerns quickly.
Steve, if a member of the LGBT community came up to you, lived in your district perhaps, came right up to you and said, I don't like this law, I was in Target the other day, I appreciated what they were doing for me, but your law made me feel very uncomfortable, and the people around me made looked like they were looking at me, made me feel very uncomfortable, and I felt like I was violating my rights. What would you say to that decision?
I'd have to respect that, and I would have to respect what they said. However, I have to also be concerned about the public, the lady who is in a restroom and may have the opportunity for a sexual predator to come in the room and video her or be in that room and take away her privacy or even have some other serious crime occur. I've got to be concerned about that too. And so again, public safety has to trump that. Okay. All right, well, thank y'all for coming.
Thank you, sir.